Let me tell you about one of the strangest and honestly one of the most compelling stories in all of modern Egyptology. It's a story that really blurs the line between hard academic scholarship and, well, mystical experience. And it all revolves around one truly extraordinary woman, Omm Sety. So picture this. The year is 1933. A 29-year-old English woman named Dorothy Eady steps off a boat in Egypt for the very first time. And what does she do? She immediately kneels down, she kisses the ground, and with tears streaming down her face, she says, "Mother, I've come home." You see, for her, this wasn't some exotic trip. It was a homecoming. It was the end of a lifelong feeling that she was a total stranger in England and that her real home was thousands of miles and thousands of years away. Okay, now let's fast forward a few decades. The scene changes to the ancient, sacred city of Abydos. And here, Dorothy is now known to everyone as Omm Sety. She's an elderly English woman living in a simple mud brick house, walking barefoot through these ancient temples. And the thing is, she's revered by the local villagers as a healer, but she's also deeply respected by the world's top Egyptologists as a brilliant, if maybe a little eccentric, colleague. And that contrast right there is the huge enigma of her life. Yeah, her connection to this place, it went way beyond books and research. Omm Sety would stroll through the temple of Pharaoh Seti I and just casually point out where a long-lost garden used to be. And guess what? Excavations later proved she was exactly right. She'd talk about pharaohs like Seti and his famous son Ramesses as if they were old friends, sharing these intimate little details that just left the experts completely stunned. So the question is, how on earth was that possible? To really get it, we have to rewind the tape all the way back to her childhood in London. The story goes that when she was just 3 years old, Dorothy Eady had a terrible fall down a flight of stairs. The family doctor actually pronounced her dead. But an hour later, she was found just sitting up in her bed, totally fine. Well, not totally. She wasn't the same. She came to believe that this accident literally unlocked a door to a past life. And from that moment on, her life was basically a beeline straight back to Egypt. Just a year after her fall, her parents took her to the British Museum. She apparently ran through the Egyptian galleries, kissing the feet of the statues and shouting home over and over again. Then, at 14, something truly terrifying happened. A vision. The spirit of a pharaoh, his face looking just like a mummy's, appeared in her room. This presence would continue to visit her, guiding her, until 1933, when she finally made that journey home. Dorothy's childhood was, let's just say, unconventional. She absolutely hated wearing shoes, a habit she kept her entire life. She'd skip school just to go study hieroglyphs at the museum. And get this, in one crazy story, she climbed a local windmill and would just ride its giant sails as they turned. She was this restless, daredevil spirit who just did not fit in Edwardian England at all. So once she got to Egypt, she married an Egyptian teacher, had a son, and named him Seti. She took the name Bulbul, but everyone started calling her Omm Sety, which just means mother of Seti. And this is where she really began to live two lives at once. On one hand, she's a modern wife and mother in Cairo, but on the other, she has this secret, ancient life where these memories of a distant past were just getting stronger and stronger every single day. She was truly living in two different worlds. Publicly, she was Dorothy Eady, a brilliant draftsman for the Egyptian Antiquities Department, known for her meticulous work. But privately, she was Omm Sety of Joy, a priestess from the 19th dynasty who served in the very same temple she would one day move to. So you're probably wondering, how did she piece this whole story together? Well, for about a year, Omm Sety said she would wake up in the middle of the night, kind of in a trance. Guided by a spirit she called Har-Ra, her hand would just start writing pages and pages of hieroglyphs all on its own. When she woke up in the morning, she'd have to translate her own strange handwriting, slowly reassembling the giant puzzle of her past life. But at the absolute core of all this was a love story, a really, really old one. Omm Sety believed that the spirit who had been visiting her since she was 14 was none other than Pharaoh Seti I himself. She was convinced he was her lover in her past life, and that his spirit had been searching for her soul for over 3,000 years. And this is where we get this fantastic ancient Egyptian phrase. Their love affair was what the ancients called eating the uncooked goose. It was totally forbidden, you see, because she, as the priestess Treshet, had taken a sacred vow of chastity. She was basically temple property, and being with any man, let alone the pharaoh himself, was a crime of sacrilege. So those nightly writing sessions revealed this incredibly tragic story. It all started in the temple garden, where the 14-year-old Bentrushet first met the middle-aged pharaoh Seti. Their secret affair was cut short when the high priest found out she was pregnant. Under interrogation, facing a public execution, she refused to name the king. So instead, to protect him, Bentrushet took her own life, vowing she would find Seti again in the next world. And this is where it gets even more tragic, because according to Omm Sety's diary, Seti himself described his agony. When he died and entered the afterlife, what they called Amenti, he expected to find her there waiting. But she wasn't. The gods had ruled that because she broke her sacred vow, her soul had to start the long cycle of reincarnation all over again, leaving Seti to search for millennia, a man she said was maddened with sorrow. So you hear this incredible mystical narrative, and you have to ask, right? How do we square that with her life in the 20th century? Was she just a fantasist, or was there something much, much more to her story? This is the question that really continues to define her entire legacy. Because here's the thing that just drove scholars crazy. Dorothy Eady had no formal university education in Egyptology, none. Yet her intuitive grasp of the subject was just profound. She could translate difficult texts, piece together broken inscriptions in a way that suggested this deep, almost built-in understanding. I mean, her contributions were totally legit. She worked with and was highly respected by the absolute giants of the field. And beyond predicting the garden's location, she was a peerless draftsman and researcher. The great American Egyptologist John A. Wilson even called her work on Abydos deeply scholarly. This woman was no amateur. And this is the paradox, isn't it? The same woman who could produce impeccable academic work would also just calmly tell a story about how she used a spell from the pyramid texts to make an aggressive cobra back off into its hole. Or she just mentioned, as a matter of fact, that, yeah, King Seti had stopped by for a visit the previous night. Her colleagues admired her work so much, but they just had no idea what to do with her spiritual claims. So we're left with this ultimate question. Was Dorothy Eady a woman who was truly, literally remembering her past life? Or was she a brilliant scholar whose love for ancient Egypt was so deep, so profound, that she simply willed herself into its story? Maybe, in the end, her story isn't about what's provably true, but about the incredible power of belief and our need for a world just beyond the one we can see.